Hi everyone, welcome to The Art of ... It's a strand that I've execed here at CMC for quite a few years now, and those who don't know what The Art of is, it's a series of mini masterclasses. They're not panels, they're informal conversations, and we always welcome the experts to the stage talking about what they know and what they do best. So it's a packed programme. There are 2 separate mini sessions within this hour. First of all, we're going to be looking at why and how children learn empathy from a very early age by seeing smiles and facial expressions. Then a bit later on, how their sense of humour begins to develop. So this is called The Art of Smiles and Laughter, and to present that, we have Pete Robinson, who is the founder of the research consultancy Gone With, and then Nadine Bailey here, who's the Director of Global Kids and Family Insights at NBC Universal. A second half is called The Art of Keeping It Real, and those who saw the opening keynote remember that Yolanda Brown spoke a lot about keeping it real, how important it is for kids to see themselves in the places where they live, which helps them to form a sense of identity, and also how, as they get older, they really, really, really value authenticity in the people that they see and engage with on their screens. So The Art of Keeping It Real will be presented for you today by Ian France, who's commissioning editor at Sky Kids, and Kes Margery, who's commissioning editor Factual and Fact End at BBC Children's. So there's a lot to say. I'll hand over to Pete and start the first session. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Alison.
Hey.
There we go, it works. Hi, and as Alison said, thank you very much for everyone coming today. Nadine and I are going to talk about the history and the importance of smiling and laughter. We'll talk about the science behind it and also how we can apply it to the content that we make. So first of all, I'm going to talk about smiling, which hopefully a lot of us were doing last night. And I really love this quote here. And there's different facial expressions and emotions that we can have, and the smile apparently is the one that is most easily recognisable by the other person to understand what that person is communicating. So this quote is very much scientifically a true statement. And what I'm going to talk about to begin with is 3 different types of smiles. 3 different types of smiles that are historically really, really important, but also really important to what we do as an industry when we make content, and also how we interact with other human beings. So the first smile that we experience as children or as babies, around 6 to 8 years, 6 to 8 weeks old, is the social smile. And this is the first interaction that a baby will have with people and humans around them that isn't wind or something else that's created by a different reason. And it's really important for a whole number of reasons. And the main reason is the more a baby is smiled at in those early stages, the more balanced they're going to be from a social emotional perspective as they age up. So it actually creates better balanced humans. So smiling at your baby is incredibly important. And there's different stages and different things that it does. So from a social awareness perspective, it's the first time that a baby is actually able to recognise cues from another human being and understand the facial expressions that are coming to them. The second thing is it actually teaches them emotional reactions. So it starts to help them understand that happiness and joy and contentment, which is incredibly important in how they build trust and kind of safe environments around them as well. The 2 really important parts as they kind of grow are emotional expressions, so the ability to actually understand the expression that's being placed to them and then reciprocate it, so smile back. So then they start to learn that they're able to influence the way that people interact and react with them. So as a form of communication, it's incredibly important. And what that does over time is it actually helps them with their attachments to human beings around them, and unsurprisingly, the more you smile as a baby, the more likely you are to smile and have, apparently, a happier life. So keep smiling. So the next smile is less pleasant in its... I had to write these words up there because I might not be able to say them. But this is a slightly more gruesome smile. So this is Guillaume Dutchine, who created the Dutchine smile. So he was a French scientist in the 1800s. He believed that the smile was the entrance to the human soul. So he got a load of cadavers and humans and stuck electrodes onto their faces to see what he could make them do with electricity. So not probably the smiliest kind of way to understand smiles. But what he found out was two things. So we're going to talk later on about authenticity, and he says the Dutchine smile is the most authentic smile you can have. And what happens is the zygomaticus major, which is here, is how we smile. So that kind of pulls the side of our mouths up and makes us smile. And then the orbicularis oculi, which is here, actually happens at the same time together, and that pulls your cheeks up, so it does this. And what it creates is crow's feet. And apparently, the more crow's feet you have, the more attractive you are to other human beings. There's been a whole load of science behind it. So if you've got crow's feet, because it's an authentic smile, something we can't actually recreate inauthentically, it shows people that we're trustworthy, that we're safe, that we're having an authentic experience with that other person. So if you have crow's feet, it's good news. You are more attractive, and scientists have proven that. So congratulations.
That's a relief.
The third smile is a very well-known smile. It's the Mona Lisa smile. And there's a really interesting thing with this, because we spoke earlier about that Victor Borge quote around it being the quickest way to communicate with a human being. What's really interesting about the Mona Lisa smile, and Nadine is going to add a little bit to this for me, is that no one really knows why she's smiling. So everyone who's viewing it is looking at the same picture, but they have a completely different experience and reaction to her face and what their face means to them. So by looking at a human being, we have a different reaction. We can write and create our own stories around that. And I love the idea that from a pure facial expression, if I smile at people here, people have different reactions to me, and that's a really interesting thing about all these people looking at this smile. They have different reactions. And
it's such like a micro expression. So the fun thing about the Mona Lisa is that there's a slight blurred shadow to the side of the face. And if you are looking at it straight on, you don't really notice that so much. You're looking at the hard, harsh mouth line. So she looks very serious. But if you look from the corner of your eye, you'll see this shadow more visibly. And from the corner of your eye, she is smiling. So it's an elusive smile. So from one perspective, you get one version. But from if you're slightly off angle, you get this other slightly different version. And the rumor is that Da Vinci was having an affair with the Mona Lisa, and that's why he put in this elusive smile. So yeah, hot gossip.
This is brilliant.
Yes.
The reason why I started studying, I did a project with an AI content testing company in the Ukraine called Wanton, and they do two things. They have something called X-ray, where they analyse the episodes themselves and the content themselves, and they have another tool which looks at kids or anyone, humans, watching that piece of content as well. And as we were going through it, it tracks specific emotions and tries to understand like how we as an audience will react to that content, to that scene, to the environments within there. From a character perspective, for example, they look at positive emotions, negative emotions. They can look at how strong those characters empathise with children, and then how strong those characters empathise with adults. Quite interesting, I'm showing the Peppa Pig one here, but you'll see with Peppa Pig, and I'll talk about George in a second, that there's strong empathy with kids. With Bluey, there's actually, you see here, there's not a lot of empathy with adults. There's really strong empathy with adults through the humour and the style and the creation of content, which we all know and we've seen in how our audiences are kind of interacting with that content. And there's a few reasons why. So we started looking at which parts of those shows made children and audiences smile, and started to understand what it was that show was doing that was really important. So the first one here is Cocomelon. And what Cocomelon does really, really well is, we were talking about that social smile, is it has a big face on the screen that smiles. The child watching it sees someone smiling at them and smiles back. Cocomelon did really, really well during COVID, when we all had masks on, we weren't seeing people. This will have been a big part for a lot of children, the smiles and the first smiles that they saw. And it's basically teaching kids to smile back at someone who's smiling them. Gabby's Dollhouse, MC Universals, has a slightly more sophisticated way of making people smile, in that it shows two characters who actually talk and engage each other and smile at each other. So it teaches So the first one's kind of teaching the child, someone smiles, I smile back. This is teaching like the social reactions between two people and how that can elicit and create smiles. One of the big surprises when I was doing this research was how strong George was as an empathiser with children, and also how much children smiled at the George content. So one of the things that happened with George was he's non-verbal. So he solves things without using words. So a good example is if another character in the show doesn't have a dinosaur and is crying, George gives them the dinosaur and stops the tears from coming, and they smile. So you see this ability, if you think from a very, very young age, that you don't need to be able to use words, you can actually non-verbally make other people smile. Making other people smile makes you smile, it creates a safer environment. And the final one there is Bluey, and so we've got this idea of smile at someone, they smile back, social smiles, non-verbal smiles. What Bluey does is it teaches people to laugh together, as we know. So it kind of, I think it was a CMC presentation many years ago with Jeff Swampy-Marsh about Phineas and Ferb, where he said, you know, what I like to do is if a joke goes over the kid's head and hits the parent behind, the parent laughs, the kid turns round and engages with the parent, and he's created this moment. Bluey now has become the master of that. It creates those kind of moments between two people and teaches people how to laugh, which is what Nadine is going to talk about shortly. I've just been doing some work with the Care Bears team, and this is really interesting from a few different perspectives, because we're going to talk about it later on about authenticity. And actually, one of the big things with laughter is being able to relate to the other person. So from a character perspective, you know, knowing that that person is actually someone that is like me. So it's obviously so important now from a children's content perspective that we create diverse, colourful content. A second thing that I really liked about some of the Care Bears research was that they're seen as huggable by children. And actually, and apparently another scientific fact, I'm full of them today, is the more you smile at people, the more likely you are to get hugged. It's pretty obvious. But that's a good thing, right? But that idea that we have to have that diverse content in the... yeah, everyone can hug.
We're getting hugged now.
That idea that, you know, creating characters and people, which we're going to talk about later on, that people can identify and relate to, allows you to emotionally connect. You're allowed to emotionally connect, and you create deeper kind of meaning in that relationship as well. And my last slide is a very, very quick word of warning with Bluey. So one of the things in Bluey is there's lots of sarcastic jokes. Actually, when you track facial expressions, sarcasm is actually an aggressive face. And the more aggressive faces that preschoolers see, the less they actually like it. So, for example, in Bluey, if you had, you know, lots and lots of sarcastic jokes one after the other, younger children, the really young children, will actually start to struggle a bit with that, because what they're looking for is like positive reinforcement and positive kind of social connections. And if there's too much sarcasm, they can see that. Which is why Bluey works so well, and this is hopefully a good opportunity to pass over to Nadine, works so well with older children, because they start to understand the nuances of sarcasm and different facial expressions. So from the ages of 4 and 5, you start to understand some of this humour as well, and what makes you able to laugh with other adults and children.
Great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about laughter. So my background outside of my day job is I do a bit of comedy. So I do some sketch comedy and some improv. Making people laugh is so warming. And I was just very curious about, like, why do we do that? So I'm going to explore a little bit of that with you guys. So first of all, just taking us back to, like, hunter-gatherers. So picture the scene. You are in the middle of the bushes. You're with your hunter-gatherer tribe, and you are out hunting predators. And suddenly you hear rustle in the bushes, and you tense up. You think, this is it. That's going to be. They're about to attack me. You get full of adrenaline. You get full of anxiety, sweat coming down, and then suddenly it happens. And out from the bushes screams a small little child going, "Rah!" And then everyone bursts out in laughter, and everything is suddenly given the all clear, and it's all okay now, and everyone can relax. And that's kind of what laughter's about. And some early models of laughter, we had Plato, who said we laugh at earlier versions of ourselves, and we laugh to feel superior. So in this example, you've got people who think, oh, previous me was so dumb to be like worried about what turned out to be this child in the bushes. And then you have Freud, who said laughter is this release of inappropriate emotions and pent-up nervous energy. And that's, again, in this case, they were worried and pent up and scared, and then they've got to release that tension and have that flow out of them, and all of that adrenaline rush have a purpose. So there's lots of different models of humour, and I don't know that any fully encompasses every single type of humour and every single type of laughter. But one of the more modern models is a theory called benign violation. So I don't know if you've come across this before, but I find this fascinating. It's essentially saying that it's McGraw and Warner, and it's from 2010, and it's a study that says we laugh at things when things are both benign, that is, safe and harmless, and at the same exact time, also a violation. So that is to say that it's a threat to how we think things should be. So many things can be violations. So one example of a violation is a physical violation. That could be like tickling. So in the example of tickling, if a parent is tickling their child, kids are very happy to have that experience. It's fun, it's safe. It's this physical violation, but it's their parent. It's fine, it's safe. If it was a stranger doing that, they're not going to be safe. It enters too much of a violation. It's too much of a threat. But again, if it was themselves tickling themselves, that's too benign. They know what's going to happen. They're not scared. It's not a threat at all. And so laughter sits in this nice, happy, fun space between things that are too much of a threat and too safe. Yeah, I know. And that applies to so many different things. So there's behavioural violations, so behaviourals where we have like an expectation of how we think people should behave in a situation, and if someone subverts that expectation, then we might laugh at that, as long as it's in a safe way. Or a cognitive violation, so puns are a great example of this, or most joke structures, where we lead someone to believe that it's going to be one thing, and then we subvert their expectation, and it's another thing. But usually, with a lot of these jokes, they're nice and safe within what we in our society and for our age group think is acceptable and safe and normal. One famous quote is that comedy is tragedy plus time. And that's one example of how we can make things safe. So I might think of a terribly embarrassing thing that happened to me when I was a child. And if I was telling that story as a child, it'd be traumatic and worrying, and I wouldn't feel safe. But now as an adult, like, I've had enough time to process it. And if I tell that story, I'm very happy and to laugh about it. And I think we can all probably think of examples in our own lives where that is the case. So for children, an example of a joke that works well for children. What's the soldier's favourite month? Ooh. March! Well done, Lindsay. So we tell this to kids, and kids of a certain age will find this hilarious because they're expecting the answer to be a month, but they might not know that there's another alternative meaning of a soldier's favourite activity. We in the room here, all adults, well, mostly anyway, and we might be used to puns. We might be used to this style of humour, so maybe it's a bit too safe for us. It's a bit too benign, but for kids, this is great fun. This is a new thing that they're learning, and a way that they're learning to understand the world. And if they're learning to understand the world, this changes at different points in time. So I've got an example here. Apologies for the slight blurry image, but I think it's important because when you're very young, you're learning with I'm talking about under fives. They're learning. They've learned toilet training. They're learning physicality and dexterity and motor skills. And so things that play with that type of thing that is in their sort of risk zone is what is most funny. So here we've got a sort of image of panty paw breaking wind in the bath, and like that's hilarious because breaking wind is funny. Yeah. Even when you're an adult, for some. But when you're a bit older, you start to understand more abstract concepts. You understand that things are not always what they seem. And Pete talked about sarcasm in Bluey, and I think that comes up where people are starting to understand some more abstract concepts. I think I can see Lindsay and Jess from Nickelodeon in the room, and like SpongeBob's still a big hit because over many years, because it's this absurdist humour that resonates with that age group. Here we've got an example of Poe doing an impression of Master Shifu, and kids recognise that Poe is not Master Shifu, he is just doing an impression of him, and that's funny for that reason, because we know that things are not always as they seem, so we're subverting that expectation. Okay, so some other sort of styles of education about humour is John Wright's book about why is that so funny, and he talks about these 4 core ideas of why we laugh. So we have a laugh of recognition, which we have a familiar situational mastery, a laugh of visceral humour, where we're laughing with high emotional intensity, a bizarre laugh, where we're laughing at the absurd or non sequitur, and a surprise laugh, where we're being caught unaware. And 90% of our laughs are laughs of recognition. If we think about stand-up, a lot of stand-up is observational humour. It's us saying, hey, you know this thing that you know about? I know about it too. And have you ever thought about this? And we're pointing out things that are slightly different or unexpected about our reality and our authentic life. So I think understanding what is authentic and what is real and familiar is very important. Okay, so as I said, I do sketch comedy. And so these are 14 games or formats for sketch comedy, and there's probably many, many more, but these are 14 that are very established. And these are ways that we can play with a particular brand of humour. So, for example, from my childhood, I can look at I'm with Stupid as a topic, and I think of the film Dumb and Dumber. And there you've got two people, one who thinks they're smarter than the other, but actually they're both two dum-dums, and we know that, and we find that funny. And we see that sort of pattern happen in a lot of different comedies. Also, role reversal. I'm thinking a lot about Despicable Me recently, because the 4 films around the corner. And that's role reversal. We've got Gru, who's this sort of evil villain character, but we love to see our evil villain characters playing not an evil villain character and being a real big softie on the inside. So lots of examples of role reversal. And we can take these formats and we can use them in different iterations. I think Pete was talking to me earlier about creating short form content and how we can make content that resonates. And I think playing on these style of formats can be really useful, and they're well established in the comedy world to lean on and to tap into, and they're a great source for inspiration as a good place to start as well. I also do improv, and in improv, what we do is we make up things on the spot. Not like this. It's all pre-established. But in improv, we come together and we make up comedy scenes by accepting an offer of what people say is a reality and then moving forward with it. And very important in that, and I think often forgotten, is that we don't just start with what we think is the funny. We don't start with the game. We start with a base reality. We start with what is a normal. We establish a normal, because we can work in a number of different worlds. Like in the kids industry, for example, there's loads of like fantasy and magic and myth. And in those worlds, making someone fly is the normal. And that's not unusual. And until we establish what that normal is, we don't know what is unusual. We don't know what the game we're playing is, and we can't lean into those games. So first, establish your normal, and then you pick up your game. You pick up your core comedic idea, and it could be any of those 14 formats that we saw from the sketch slide previously, or any other kind of thing that says, hey, this is the unusual thing that we're playing with. And then you heighten the game and play the game. So heightening, you might say, if this is true, then what else is true in that world? Or you might explore that idea and see if this is true, why is it true? And importantly as well, we also want to see reactions. So if we have all established this is an unusual thing, this is what we as a group are saying is the game, is the thing that we're finding funny, then we also want to see that other people agree with us that this is unusual. So we want to see people's authentic reactions to say, actually, no, that is strange. Why are you doing that strange thing? And it's often the time that we establish those reactions that we get the biggest laughs, because we're tapping in, we're connecting together. And as Peter talked about, we're big social animals. We laugh most when we're together. We laugh louder when we're together. So I think that can be very important. So I'll leave I'll leave a slide up with some key takeaways, but hand over to Ian France and Kez.
Go on.
Margaret. You know, I practiced that. I practiced getting your name, pronouncing it correctly, to talk about authenticity and and I'll pass it.
And thank you for the clicker. So we work at the moment for rival broadcasters, don't we? But we've worked together for years, and we've come together today because we did Operation Ouch together.
We did Operation Ouch together, and talking about sort of authenticity and kids seeing themselves reflected. It's now in its 13th year of being recorded. And there are now young people training to be doctors, nurses, paramedics who watch the show. So
and that's like the ultimate sort of, unscripted live action sort of factual entertainment show, which is actually inspiring kids. But so we've come together today just to, we've heard about the importance of facial recognition there from Pete and Nadine, thanks for that. And especially at a younger age. But then as well as a smile, it's what people say and do, and that's really important as kids get older. So let's take a look at what we say, how it needs to be authentic, and whether kids can spot fake smiles a mile off as they learn to be themselves. So let's just quickly go through what we're going to do in this session. So we're going to basically hear from kids themselves, first of all. We're going to hear some kids in a minute. We've done some filming with our FYI crew, which is the Sky Kids news show. And we're going to find out whether kids, do kids want people to be authentic on screen and why? And we'll hear from kids to really understand. Where is it important to be authentic? We'll look at the various platforms that kids are watching content on. There's the usual suspects. And we'll see where authenticity is resonating with them. And also what's important. And we'll look at the different types of content and what content is important to kids as they grow up. So let's hear from some kids. It's CMC. Let's hear from them. And we asked them some questions. And let's kick off with that.
There's not a lot of people that are themselves and that actually tell the truth when they're saying something. It's normally they just want to say what people want them to say so that people would watch them more instead of actually being truthful.
It honestly just depends what they're doing. Yeah, it really depends what they're doing because you can't trust everyone on TV.
To be fair, I'm not sure like any celebrity is truly honest because in different videos there are like different sides of them. So,
well, not everyone's always being authentic because sometimes I see these people making things up just to be known and like people believe them. And I think it's important to have a person on TV telling the truth with no edited bits. I only think of like my family as being truthful because you never know if a celebrity or someone online is ever being truthful because you're not there to witness what's happening. Even if they're on like a live, you don't know if they're being truthful. You don't know who's behind the camera or if they're just lying about it just to get someone to hear it. So you can only know who's truthful if you are seeing it with your eyes.
I watch on the TV, YouTube and Netflix.
It depends. You can, to be honest, you can get everything from YouTube. You can get videos of movies, you can get full movies, you can get full episodes, you can get videos and YouTubers. You can get everything from YouTube. Like, you could get a whole Netflix preview. You could get interviews, videos, anything you want, you can find it from YouTube and you can find the links from YouTube, so mostly just YouTube.
I watch YouTube on my TV, even though I have Netflix, but I don't have a Netflix account.
I balance it between YouTube and TikTok.
So do you watch any normal TV, do you think?
No.
I'd say YouTube. I don't really watch normal television anymore. I don't have a TV license. I wouldn't know.
Me, generally, I don't use social media because my mum tells me it's not safe, so I don't use it. But I don't think that it's actually safe myself. Like, I don't use TikTok.
But if I want to watch like a good movie, it'd probably be like Disney or Netflix, somewhere where it's high rating.
Normal TV,
They have lots of these channels. I can tell you that I get lost scrolling on the channels just to find my brother's favourite video.
I can't exactly use social media because I don't have a phone, so...
Yeah.
I watch a lot of YouTube though.
Yeah, I watch YouTube and I watch Netflix.
I'd say I'd use my phone and sometimes the TV, usually on YouTube or Netflix.
I think YouTube might be a little bit more believable because they edit themselves, because they have these small platforms, not as big as like these big companies.
I'd say they're more honest on YouTube because, you know, Netflix usually is just acting.
I trust normal TV more because normal TV has been approved by the actual company, not FBI.
And YouTube, there's loads of videos, many videos. People can upload videos within a second. So you never know if they're telling the truth or not.
Yeah, weren't they fantastic? And, you know, they were really amazing, those kids, and those responses are really genuine. You know, they're just from the rushes, from the day's filming, and sometimes we just need to hear from kids directly because we can't second guess because the landscape is changing so quickly. So that was great to see all their thoughts. So we've heard from our sample kids with what's going on in their world, but let's have a little look now at the wider country. There we go. So we've just had the, in April, Ofcom released their latest data. And because this session's about authenticity, I've just picked some select facts. So more than 80% of 3 to 17-year-olds use YouTube. Seems to be the watchword today, doesn't it, in this session? And they're moving away from broadcast live television. So they are moving into this space, and we've known that for a long time. But there is still a place for television, and they're watching YouTube on television in their living rooms. So everything's just changing a little bit. 5 to 7-year-olds are now becoming increasingly present online, which may pose greater risks for them. So the younger they are, the less savvy they are about certain threats, and they may be more trusting. So fake news becomes an issue here, and I think one of the kids in the video, I noticed, said that they only trust what their families say, but that's only depends on whether the family's actually using trusted news services. So it's really interesting. 32% of 3 to 17-year-olds post their own videos to online platforms, and TikTok is now the most popular, followed by YouTube, especially for the older demographic. So, and when they were uploading it as part of the survey, they were very cautious about how they were perceived by others. So that authenticity, about being yourself. So they often share temporarily among smaller circles or reshare other posts only. And what I'm discovering in my role is that younger kids all love YouTube still, but anecdotally, older kids are shifting towards TikTok and even shorter content because YouTube now is a longer content, and older kids want shorter content. So especially in their news, which is really interesting. So even down to a minute is long enough for some of the older kids, not the longer content that YouTube provides. So the next stat is that 55% of parents are worried that their child's online use might damage their reputation either now or in the future. And that's whether they're being fake or whether they're being authentic when they upload their own content, perhaps. And 81% that believe that news stories from their family are mostly accurate. So again, as long as the family are providing accurate news and it's from trusted sources. And then finally, 66% of 8 to 17-year-olds say that news on social media is false, which is good. You know, so we know there's a high percentage that they are aware that there's a higher percentage know that it might be false that they're seeing on social media. So let's just very quickly remind ourselves of what our kids said. So we've got some quotes there from that video that we just watched, and we can compare that now with what the Ofcom research was saying. And the most important thing here is that they're aware that people can be fake to get what they want. Some kids don't watch normal television anymore. Slightly worries me. Anyway, YouTube appears to be seen... New World. YouTube appears to be seen as the most authentic, so we're going to delve deeper on that in a minute. At Sky Kids, we've made a gaming series called Let's Game with popular YouTubers. So I've asked Dan TDM, who's got nearly 30 million subscribers on YouTube alone, to explain to us all why he thinks it's important to be authentic on YouTube and what's been the secret to his success. So let's have a little look at Dan and what he's got to say.
Hey guys, Dan TDM here and welcome to Animal Crossing New Horizons. Today, we are going on the world famous Dan TDM River Cruise. What do you mean you've never heard of it? Right, to the dock. Hey, this is who we're looking for, right? The River Cruise.
I think the authenticity of being a YouTuber is super important and is really, I feel like it's contributed to my success quite a lot because it was me recording the videos, me choosing the content, me doing the thumbnails and doing the editing as well, and then sharing little bits about my life and about me, as well as the gaming. So in all of my content, you kind of get a little piece of me. And I feel like the audience really connects with that. And that's really important if you want to grow your videos, but also as a person as well. And I think like fans really connect with that, and it's nice.
Oh, how did I miss that? I second guessed myself. No.
Brilliant. It's big thanks to Dan for doing that. And it ties into what one of our kids said earlier about smaller channels and they're not big companies. And we'll touch on that a little bit later on. So let's have a little look at the positives and negatives, though, of being one of these content creators. The positives are, of course, that peer relationships are key. So to be part of something that your friends talk about is key. And some people in the room absolutely know all of this because it's part of our day-to-day in our world in kids media. They're the celebrities these days, of course, and they're your friends. These people aren't on television anymore, really. They are in a different world entirely, and when we try to put them on television, we do our best to serve them well in a different format, and we'll touch on that shortly. If you are, as a kid, you're feeling something inside, you've got an anxiety or something you can't talk about openly to anyone, then there will be someone you can listen to who will resonate with you instantly. But that's the important thing. They're there immediately as soon as you click on their channel. And it's also something that your parents don't really know about, so they're so uncool, parents. I'm uncool. My kids are 5 and 7, and I'm totally uncool even at that age. So yeah, I've got a lot to learn. It's starting younger. Yes. Okay, but there are some negatives as well. Let's click. There we go. So negatives. So obviously linking to the wrong brands can stop your authenticity as a content creator. Sometimes they can get in trouble for their inappropriate opinions, and we've seen all that in the news with various different content creators. And one thing we were just talking about this morning is, are they portraying a real life or are they portraying a fake life? And that can be really obvious to some people. They'll watch it and go, I don't believe them. And Instagram's a big thing like that. You know, you get like gym pictures, don't you, and body shaming and things like this that all happen.
Is that your Instagram feed?
Yes, it is, yeah. But do you know what I mean? You get lots of, everyone on Instagram is trying to be the perfect house with the candles and and you look at it and go, I haven't got candles. Never thought I'd be talking about candles on this thing. Okay, brilliant. So it seems that YouTube has this special magic, doesn't it? And that that YouTube has when it comes to authenticity. But can we recreate that in television formats? That's something that I wanted to kind of talk about. And I think that, and do we need to? That's another thing as well. So when it comes to making television, we've got formats, we've got break bumpers and title sequences, and you deliver your show and the broadcaster says, your title sequence must be 45 seconds and it must be a duration of 13 minutes with 15 seconds either side. And, we've got all these things that come up, break bumpers, end credits. Sometimes there can be seen to be too many cooks when you're making television. There's so many layers of editorial approval. There's regulations that we all have to adhere to. More parents' eyes watching it because perhaps they've been watching that channel for many years themselves and it's trusted. And also there's a traditional expectation of television as well. But what I will say is that because of this list that you're seeing now, it's trusted and there's a care about making TV that isn't on YouTube, I would suggest. We're not reliant on these algorithms. We all care and we work together to make a trusted, curated service, I think, on television. That's something that I think has always been really important and always will be very important. And that's why people watch television with these other platforms. And, we mustn't put our eggs all in one basket now. We've got to be aware that there are lots of different platforms for lots of different things, and every one of those platforms is just as important because you're reaching a fan base or reaching somebody that wants to watch it on that platform. So if you'll allow me just to return to Let's Game, we wanted to make Let's Game a series that reflected the YouTube sort of style and structure. So what we've done is we've got Yami, who's going to talk now. She's a gamer, she's a mum, and she's worked with us to make it have that same vibe. And here's Yami's thoughts.
Want to check out the statue? He said it's on one of the islands on this planet, so let's go try and find it.
Hi everyone, I'm Yami. I'm a content creator, a gamer, and one of the presenters on Sky Kids Let's Game.
Oh no, oh.
When you're transitioning from YouTube to TV, I think authenticity is crucial because it helps to build trust. Kids can tell when someone's being genuine and they connect more deeply with content that feels real and honest.
The planet behind the sun looks like the Earth.
When I'm creating videos, I always strive to be myself and share my true reactions and my experiences. This way, my viewers know that they can trust me and what I share with them.
Cool.
In terms of bringing YouTube-style content to television, I believe it's definitely possible. TV might feel old school to some, but it has a timeless quality that still appeals to a lot of people.
I'm so curious. I love exploring.
With Let's Game, we've managed to keep the spirit of YouTube alive by maintaining that same energy, the format, and the interactivity that makes YouTube so special. It's all about making sure that the content remains engaging and true to what kids love. And as a parent myself, I also see what my own child enjoys watching and can often influence my style. Seeing their reactions has helped me understand what resonates with young audiences and has pushed me to create content that's not only entertaining, but also meaningful and true to my personality.
The gravity is so different on this planet.
Great stuff, thank you. Nice little soundbite there. So basically, let's move away from YouTube a little bit now, and we're going to look at factual entertainment shows that are so super important. And yeah, they're very important to make because the kids need to see themselves reflected on screen. It's vitally important. And as kids watch other kids on screen, I'm not talking about animation or drama. That's written, and the stories are amazing, and the research that goes into it, and those is vitally important. But we're talking about real experiences, real children on camera that hasn't been written or scripted with a team. They're really doing something, and when you see that, you learn a lot yourself as you're growing and finding yourself in the world. So let's have a little look. So we've got community. They can encourage a sense of community when you see other children. When you watch them on the show, you see the different communities. That's an actual photo from a Notting Hill Carnival group that we used in one of our shows. But they learn about how they can interact with other children. Knowledge, and again, about the real world around them. That's something that's quite key when we make our news output for Sky News with Sky Kids. What's the right knowledge they need for the world around them to be so they're engaged and educated about what's going on with so many crazy things that are happening out there right now that I'm sure we didn't have when we were growing up. Actually, the news is full on. Life skills. So I think this is more for younger children, so they learn citizenship. But when it comes to older kids, again, they learn to cope with difficult situations. But they are turning to YouTube for that. But when it comes to, and Kez will talk about some of her programming soon, about kind of, older kids, they need this programming in order to learn and find themselves, which is important, because authenticity, they want to be true to themselves. I'm going to show a clip now from the younger end, because I think it's important. We've talked about older children, but when it comes to preschool children, there's a really great show on Milkshake called Ruin Harper's Wonder World. It's made by Doc Hartz, and I think it was mentioned yesterday, actually, in one of the commissioner conversations. But I just want to run this clip, and then I'll just show you why younger end programming is also important when it comes to factual entertainment.
Akara, that's how you say hello in Nigeria. Akara! Would you like to come in and play? Yeah! So, this is called Ankara, and this is like a colourful fabric, and we're going to make a fan with it. Do you want to choose which fabric you want? I'm using this one. Okay. This one. Yeah. Bro, do you need help? Yes, please. Okay. We're gonna go like that. Okay. And then just keep doing it. Yeah, good.
So on that particular clip, obviously they're learning about other countries and other cultures, which is a really great show. But also there was a sister helping a brother, you know, and it's all that sort of, there's all those elements to this series as well. So you're learning and picking up so much things by just watching children live in their life. So I'm going to hand over to Kez now, and Kez is going to talk about some of the shows that you've been the commissioning editor for at the BBC. So over to you, Kez.
Yeah. So obviously completely irrelevant because everybody's watching YouTube and not watching TV at all. But I suppose what we've been talking about up to now is why kids want it and what they're expecting from it. And I'm going to look a little bit about how and the responsibility, if you are programme makers, when you are shooting with kids and ensuring that you're allowing a space for them to be authentic. Because children actually, most children want to please grown-ups, and that if you are the person behind the camera, you have to create a space where they feel able to be themselves. And so props to the people who were interviewing those FYI kids, because they were obviously not holding back with their honesty. So, I mean, you've touched on it, you know, that the scripted content is brilliant. We've got some great authentic stories and in both animation and live action. But there is really nothing like seeing a real child who looks like you, shares your passions, even goes through the same struggles as you. And it was Marion Edelman Wright, who is still alive, 85, child. She was an activist for children's rights, and she first coined the phrase, "You cannot be what you can't see." And obviously Dr. Ronks on Operation Ouch has taken that up. But I think it's really, really true. And so we've got a few clips, so you don't have to listen to me all the time. So the My Life series is on, we're now on our 16th series. It's documentaries told by kids, for kids, to kids. And this is just a clip, a very, very short clip about Brooke. And we commissioned this for Anti-Bullying Week last year. It's made by Yeti in Wales. They won an RTS for it in Wales, just saying. But this is just a tiny clip of Brooke.
Through my songwriting, I like to show people, that's my way of saying you're never going to stop me, and you're never going to stop me from chasing my dreams and doing what I love.
Can you please sing me a song? Something you've been working on?
Definitely. So this song's about being bullied, but just this is my way of turning negative into positive. So yeah. 'Cause I was always the odd one out, stranded in my sorrows and self-doubt, making it so hard to ignore. I can't sing no more.
Thought I would crumble and fall.
I feel like the song's coming along amazingly so far. I've decided to take it in more of a dance track route. I want to get that summer vibe, that upbeat song vibe, to make people just feel really happy and hoping that everyone will have a good time when they hear it. I want to write about coming out the other end of the tunnel, and not even just to help me get through it, but I want to put my music out there to help other children as well, to know that you can always get through it and there is another side of the tunnel.
So the reason I wanted to show that was because I think when you are telling authentic stories, if you make a fake hope, kids will smell it a mile off. But we are in the business. You'll have heard Sarah at the commissioning meeting session yesterday talking about the need to show hope to kids, because you touched on it, the world isn't a great place. And that's what we cast that series really, that film really carefully, so that all the children featured had gone through something that you could relate to, but had come out the other end and were really using their experience to create great things. And so if you as a viewer are going through being bullied and you can see children like you coming through the other end, that really speaks a lot. And so hope is really important. So Football Academy, the reason I wanted to show this little clip, and by the way, they all are all a bit doom and gloom, and we've just talked about laughter. I do apologise, but I promise we've got lots of fun on our channel.
But there's a reason why.
There is a reason.
Yeah.
So Football Academy brings children who love football into the series, and there's lots of joy in the series, but it also allows us to tell other stories, but through the means of football. And so, yeah, it's made by Zigzag for us. Let's have a look at, this is Freddie's story.
But the mood is very different for teammate Freddie.
Freddie was upstairs, so Grant went up and told him.
It was one of those where it was obviously disappointing. It was definitely tough to take. It was probably one of the hardest things that I've had to hear, especially from my own parents saying that to me. It was almost like a stab through the heart type of thing, but it was kind of one, okay, now we have to move forward.
And Freddie will get some help from the club to do that.
When a player is unfortunately notified that they're being released, we want to ensure that there's support around them to make sure that they feel that they're supported through that process.
What I want to do, get back playing as quickly as I can, whatever level, and then hopefully if it is just playing a couple of grassroots tournaments, get back into maybe JPL, another academy, and just keep playing at the highest standard I can.
Good on you, Freddie. That's the spirit.
I know many players that have been released. One includes Luke Shaw. He got released from Saints as well, and he has gone back and made it to the very, very top. So for me, it's one small step back for a big comeback. That's what's going on in my head at the moment. But it's obviously still hurts a little bit, but we're just waiting for the bigger comeback to come.
A comeback is what we want, and what we'll have. We'll come back to see what the future holds for Freddie.
So it does end with hope. And by the way, Ollie Watkins, what a brilliant example of how you can get released or relegated to Western-super-Mare and then score a goal for your country. So, yeah, hopefully he will. But also, that's a real-life story. That's not written. Yeah. That's a real-life inspirational story for kids to take hope from. But I just want to talk a bit about the duty of care, because if you are telling authentic stories, real stories of children, you have a duty of care to ensure that they're safe in the way that they're telling those stories. And so, Southampton Football Academy is exemplary in its safeguarding, but we work very closely with them, with the Indy, but also with the family, and he obviously got to see that and really wanted to tell that story, because life is messy. Things don't always go the way that you want it to. So, the final one is BMX. Oh, I wanted to also say that it's very rare to see boys talking about emotions in that way, and I wanted to reflect that, because that's for young boys to see another boy talking about emotions is important too. So the last clip I'm going to show, how far are we? No. So BMX All Stars, it's coming up on CBBC shortly, and we commissioned it because Peckham BMX Club is amazing. And Peckham is, for those who don't know, it's an area of southeast London that doesn't always get its stories told, the positive stories told. So it's often in the news, particularly with young people, around violence and crime. And actually, there are some amazing kids in this club. Hundreds of kids come through it, rain or shine, in the dark, in the middle of the winter. And we wanted to shine a light on them just taking the stage and proving that they are great. Imagine the stories that are told about where you live always being negative, the impact that has on you and your future. And so these kids are just telling it differently and showing a different side to life, and this is Zander.
Coming up, can a calamitous crash be followed by a colossal comeback?
This weekend, big weekend. Are you ready?
Yeah. I've missed out on a load of training, so coming into the season, I had way less training than everyone else, and I wasn't as fast. The injury affected just the way I was thinking about myself. Because when I came back, I wasn't doing that as well. I wasn't at the front, so it was hard for me because I was so used to it. Yeah.
Zander's desperate to get back to his best. Will the ghost of that crash come back to haunt him at the Manchester Nationals?
That one doesn't end positive, but it does in real life. He does come back and he goes to the Worlds, and it's a great story. But we also commissioned that because we know, just from listening to the kids talking about Netflix all the time, that they're seeking out these kind of reality series. And so this is obviously aimed at slightly older kids. It leans into that kind of storytelling. It's Ashley Waters doing the voiceover, but again, if you like that kind of cool, dangerous sport, I went to that club a few times, and these kids are fearless, I tell you. I went to the top of the track with my wheelchair. I would never, on wheels, have gone down that.
I thought you said you were going to.
No, well, I was. To be quite honest.
There's research and there's research.
But I was genuinely thinking, oh, well, I'll have a go. Like, whoa, no way. And there are like 5-year-olds doing it. It's amazing. But we just, we wanted to bring that world to kids, but through that world we see lots of different stories. And so we just want to make, with all of this reality content that we're doing, I think there's a real duty of care and responsibility from the programme makers to look after those kids who we're putting front and centre. But it is a way to help slowly chip away at bad things in the world. And Marion Edelman Wright also said, if you don't like the way the world is, you have an obligation to change it. So just throwing it out there, that's what we need to do.
Yeah. We thought we'd end our little session by going back to the kids, because obviously last week was the general election, and at the time we were preparing for this, we weren't expecting Rishi to say we were going to have a general election, but we've decided to keep this in anyway. We decided to ask the kids, what do you think about politicians? And I think it's really interesting to see what they think and whether they think politicians are fake or not. So we asked them these questions, and this is again when Keir Starmer was on FYI. But let's see what those kids have got to say again, because they're really opinionated and we love hearing from them.
I don't like politicians. There are very rare politicians that tell the truth and don't just let you hear what you want to hear and actually do things that are right for the country.
Some are good, some are bad, some literally just want money.
I think maybe it could be very stressful as a politician, but also they do make up stuff.
It's basically like the blame game. You really just want to get people to believe you, but sometimes they take it too far and then they just make up complete lies. Well, in my opinion, I don't like politicians because the only way they became politicians is from telling people what they want to hear. But as soon as they become a politician, it's more about them doing what they want and what they want for the country instead of taking in everyone else's ideas.
So that's what we're doing to help with energy costs. And for the most vulnerable families, those who really need extra help, we're putting lots and lots of extra money to help them over the course of this year.
Most of it I think was true. But then when Rishi Sunak said he would help the families that needed it, I didn't believe that part.
I think at first glance Rishi Sunak did look believable because his posture, how he spoke to the kids.
I beg to differ because sometimes when people are being too nice to me, I get that feeling that they're doing it just so then they do a favour for me.
I think the climate crisis is the biggest challenge that we all face. It's going to be huge for you, because it's your future we're talking about here.
I think he seemed kind. He seemed truthful.
But most politicians are now making quite big claims to stop climate change and everything.
Yeah.
Which is going to be very difficult. So it's hard to believe he will do it in his turn in office.
Well, I will believe them if I actually see a change. But there's been a lot of prime ministers saying that they're going to stop pollution and there's still climate change going on and no one's actually done anything about it.
So there we go. And I think so they've got really, really great opinions, and I think they're getting older, younger. I really do. I think when I was that age, I wouldn't be able to talk like that. That's for sure. So there's a change happening, a really big landscape change in how they're taking in media and what their opinions are, and they can spot a fake a mile off. So thank you very much. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you to our panellists. Thank you to Pete, Nadine, to Ian and to Kez. What a brilliant session.